The sky over Port Meridian always looked like it had forgotten how to be blue. A blanket of refinery haze hung low over the lower rings, turning sunrise into a dull amber smear. On most mornings, 12-year-old Noah Raines would have loved to stay in bed and pretend the world was softer than it really was. But he wasn't most kids, and this wasn't most mornings. He stood at the curb beside a battered transit pylon, one strap of his school bag cutting into his shoulder, his breath fogged in the cold. He watched the roadway the way someone watches a promise quiet, steady, refusing to look away. 6 months ago, he'd said, "I'll be here," and Noah didn't break his words. A silver lift car drifted down. Without sound, its hull to clean for the lower rings. Even the grime seemed to slide off it like it knew it wasn't welcome. The side door opened with a soft hiss. Noah climbed in and gave the driver a familiar nod. The driver returned it like they'd done this 100 times. In the back seat sat Sarah Volin, a girl whose skin held a faint inner glow, the cool shimmer of deep water under starlight. Her eyes wide, dark, and reflective lifted the moment Noah stepped inside. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying a delicate harmony that made even simple words sound musical. Noah grinned. "Morning, ready for another day of principle." Danton pretending he's funny. Sarah's smile brightened, and for a second the dull, smudged world outside the lift car felt less heavy. She sat secured in a supportive mobility rig, the kind that kept her posture stable, without forcing her bones to bear more than they could. Even so, Noah caught the slight tension in her shoulders, pain held politely in place, like a guest she couldn't ask to leave. The lift car rose and slid into the traffic lanes that threaded toward the Unified Academy, one of the few schools in the district that put human kids and off-world kids in the same halls. The program had been called brave, naive, reckless depending on who you asked. Noah's mom called it necessary. She worked too many hours to count, taking shifts wherever she could find them, because she believed education was the one thing the city couldn't steal. If you held it tight enough. The academy building itself was an old human structure repurposed after the first waves of alien settlement. It had a fresh coat of paint and a shiny plaque out front, but inside it was still what it had always been: narrow stairwells, tight corners, and temporary accessibility upgrades that broke more often than they worked. 6 months ago, on Sarah's first day, Noah had watched her at the front steps. He remembered it too clearly, the way the crowd flowed around her like water round a stone, the way teachers were in meetings, the way a maintenance bot sat, idle beside an out-of-order grav lift panel. Sarah had tried to climb anyway, gripping the handrail with shaking fingers, pulling herself up one step at a time. Each motion carved pain across her face. Some students stared, some looked away harder, as if pretending she wasn't there could make them innocent. Noah hadn't planned to do anything heroic. He hadn't even thought about it. He'd simply walked up and asked, "Do you want help?" Sarah had blinked at him like his language didn't make sense. "I have to reach the 3rd level," she'd said carefully, "but I understand if you cannot. It is not expected." Noah had crouched, turning his back. "Get on. I've carried heavier stuff than a backpack. She'd hesitated. Not because she didn't need it, because she did, but because accepting help felt like a rule. She'd been taught not to break. Then she'd slipped her arms around his shoulders. Noah had stood and immediately regretted how confident he'd been. Sarah wasn't heavy, not really. Her people were built lighter than humans. But 3 flights of stairs were still 3 flights, and by the time he reached the 3rd level, his legs burned and his shirt clung to his skin. He'd been late to class. His teacher had scolded him. Noah had barely heard it, because Sarah had looked at him with something like shock and relief mixed together. Like she'd just discovered the universe had one kinda corner left. The next morning, Noah was at the transit stop again. And the next. And the next. Soon it became rhythm. The lift car dropped them at the academy at 7:45. Noah helped Sarah out of her rig. She looped her arms around his neck. He carried her up to the 3rd level for advanced sciences. At lunch, he carried her down again. After school, he carried her back to the entrance. He didn't announce it. He didn't make a speech. He didn't ask anyone to clap. To Noah, it wasn't a cause. It was a friend needing stairs to stop being enemies. Most students got used to it the way they got used to anything by deciding it was normal, and forgetting how strange it had been at first. Not everyone, though. One day, halfway up the 2nd flight, a group of older boys blocked the stairwell. Their jackets bore the symbol of the Human Priority League, a student group that pretended to be civic-minded while practicing something uglier. Their leader, Dane Mercer, smirked as Noah approached. "Well, look at that," Dane said. "The delivery service is here." Noah stopped, keeping his balance steady so Sarah wouldn't move. Dane leaned closer, voice syrupy with mock sympathy. "You know there are programs for that. You don't have to play pack animal." Sarah's grip tightened, and Noah felt the tremor that ran through her arms. "Please," she whispered near his ear. "We can take another route." "There isn't another route that doesn't make you late," Noah murmured back. Then, louder, "Get out of the way." Dane's smile sharpened. "Or what? You'll fight me with your little passenger." Noah looked at him, calm in a way that made the air go thin. "I don't have to fight you," he said. "All I have to do is not be you." Something flickered across Dane's face, anger, maybe, or fear of being seen for what he was. His friends shifted. The stairwell went quiet except for distant hallway noise. Finally, Dane stepped aside with an exaggerated flourish. "After you, Saint Noah." Noah walked past without giving him the satisfaction of a reaction. His heart hammered, but his feet stayed measured. By the time he set Sarah into her adapted seat on the 3rd level, her eyes glimmered with that soft luminescence her people showed when emotions pressed too close. "You should not provoke them," she said. "They're loud." "Not dangerous," Noah replied, hoping his confidence sounded real enough to become real. That afternoon, in xenobiology lab, their teacher, Dr. Vale, announced the project that would shift their whole year. "Our class has been selected for the Interspecies Youth Symposium next month," Dr. Vale said, smiling like she'd been waiting to say it all semester. "Teams will present research on cooperative science. 3 projects will represent our school. The grand forum. The room erupted whispers, excitement, competitive grins. Sarah leaned toward Noah, eyes bright. "We should present immune response compatibility," she said quickly. "Our preliminary data is promising." Noah laughed. "Only if you're ready to work harder than everyone else." "I am always ready," Sarah said. And for once she looked less like someone enduring life and more like someone choosing it. They threw themselves into it. Lunches became library sessions. After school hours became lab time. Noah carried Sarah to the work tables and adjusted equipment so she could reach it without straining. Sarah's mind moved like a clean blade, precise, fast, and fearless. She saw patterns Noah would have missed. Noah brought patience, persistence, and a stubborn refusal to quit even when his brain felt like it was overheating. Their research explored how human immune systems and Illyrian immune systems, Sarah's people, reacted differently to shared pathogens and how combining certain response pathways might lead to treatments useful for multiple species. It was the kind of science adults wrote grants for, not the kind kids did for grades. The work drew them closer in ways Noah didn't fully notice until one evening in the lab. When the building was quiet and the windows showed the city lights trembling under smog, Sarah spoke without looking up from the microscope. "Noah, may I ask you something direct?" He paused. "Sure." "Why do you help me?" He blinked. "Because you need help." "That is true," she said softly, "but it is not complete. You could avoid extra effort. You could choose friends who cost you nothing." Noah frowned, uncomfortable. "Are you asking me to stop?" "No." Sarah's eyes widened. "Never. I only want to understand." Noah leaned back in his chair, searching for words that didn't feel too big for a 12-year-old. "My mom says kindness isn't a transaction," he said finally. "It's not I do this so you owe me later. It's just you see someone struggling. You do what you can. That's it." Sarah studied him like he was a rare specimen. "Your mother shaped you well. She had to," Noah said, trying to grin. "I'm a lot of trouble." When presentation day came, Noah's nerves kicked hard for the first time in months. He cared about winning, but not because he wanted applause. He wanted Sarah to be seen for what she actually was: brilliant, driven, and more than her pain. They presented like they'd built the talk into their bones. Sarah spoke with calm authority, explaining their findings with clarity that made even the toughest concepts feel understandable. Noah ran demonstrations, handled questions, and kept the flow steady. When they finished, the room applauded real applause, not polite. A week later, Dr. Vale announced the top 3 teams. Noah and Sarah took first. Noah called his mom that weekend, catching her on a break at the factory. She looked exhausted on the screen, eyes ringed red from long shifts. "That's amazing, baby," she said, smiling anyway. "I'm proud of you. Can you come?" Noah asked, already knowing how the question would land. His mom's smile faltered. "It's Saturday, isn't it?" Noah nodded. "I can't miss a shift," she said softly. "Not right now." Noah swallowed. "It's okay. I get it." And he did. He just wished getting it didn't sting. The next Monday, Sarah didn't arrive. Noah waited at the transit stop until the cold bit through his sleeves. The lift car finally came, empty except for the driver. Miss Vollen is unwell, the driver said. She sends apology. Days passed. Messages went unanswered. Noah's worry grew teeth. Then, on Saturday morning, an audio message came through Sarah's voice, thin but steady. "I am recovering," she said, "but my family requires my presence sooner than expected. I leave tomorrow, to weeks." Noah's stomach dropped. "But the symposium is in. I will return in time," she said. "I promise." Noah spent those 2 weeks alone in a way he hadn't expected. Dane Mercer's comments got louder. Noah kept his head down and practiced both parts of their talk anyway, because that's what you did when you cared. 5 days before the symposium, Sarah returned. She looked better, healthier, glowed brighter, but something in her expression was guarded, like she'd built a wall she didn't know how to take down. On the eve of the event, Noah finally asked, "What's going on?" Sarah's fingers tightened around the armrest of her chair. "Have you ever carried a secret so heavy it feels like it will break you?" Noah crouched so they were eye level. "Tell me after," he offered, careful, "after the symposium. If you still want to." Sarah's eyes shone. "After," she whispered. "I promise." The Grand Forum in the Upper District looked like a different planet. Clean streets, glass towers, people who walked like they'd never had to choose between rent and food. The Academy provided a shuttle. Noah helped Sarah into a specialized seat. Security officers, human and alien, stood everywhere with discreet alertness. Their presentation went perfectly. Noah felt light afterward, like the months of work had finally paid back the effort with something real. Then the auditorium lights dimmed. A voice rolled through the sound system. "Honored guests, we welcome our keynote speaker, Sovereign of the Illyrian Dominion, Empress Kayla Vollen." The applause hit like thunder. A figure stepped onto the stage, tall, luminous, draped in shimmering fabric that seemed to catch the light and bend it. Her presence filled the space like gravity. Noah barely breathed, because the shape of her face, the curve of her eyes, the unmistakable resemblance made his mind flip inside out. Noah turned slowly toward Sarah. Sarah sat perfectly still, hands trembling. "No," Noah whispered, the word not quite forming. Sarah met his gaze, and her eyes glowed with emotion. "Yes." The secret slammed into place. Sarah Vollen, the girl he'd carried up broken stairs for 6 months, was the Empress's daughter. When the keynote ended, Empress Kayla did something no one expected. "I wish to recognize a presentation that embodies cooperation," she announced. Sarah Vollen and Noah Raines joined me. A wave of attention crashed toward them. Noah's legs felt like they'd turned to metal. Still, his hands moved as they always did. He lifted Sarah gently, helped her up the stage steps, and carried her the last short distance because the ramp angle was wrong, and the world still wasn't built for her body. At center stage, the Empress looked at Noah with eyes that held centuries. "You carry my daughter," she said, voice warm and terrible in its power. "Why?" Noah's throat was dry, but the truth was simple. "Because she needs help," he said. "And because she's my friend." Silence spread across the auditorium, like a held breath. Then the Empress smiled genuinely, like a mother hearing something she desperately needed to believe. "My child wrote of you," she said. "She spoke of your steadiness. She did not mention your courage." "I'm not a Noah," began. "You are." The Empress cut in gently. "Because kindness is not common when it costs something." She addressed the crowd about compassion that wasn't performative, about dignity that didn't depend on rank, about how real bridges were built in stairwells and lunchrooms long before treaties were signed. Afterward, Noah and Sarah were escorted to a private reception. Noah felt painfully out of place in his worn shoes and second-hand jacket. The Empress approached him without ceremony. "You have questions?" "I do," Noah admitted. "Why?" "Send her there, somewhere that hurts her." The Empress's expression softened. "Because the places that are gentle to her are not always honest," she said. "On our world, her title cages her. Here, she could be unseen enough to find something real. I feared cruelty. I hoped for compassion. You gave her that." Noah swallowed hard. Then the Empress asked about his mother, and Noah told her about the shifts, the factory, the missed Saturday. The Empress listened like it mattered. In the weeks that followed, Noah's life changed. His tuition was covered. His mother received a better job, one that didn't grind her down, one that paid enough to let her breathe. The school rushed to offer accommodations for Sarah, working lifts, classroom relocations. Every repair they'd ignored until Power walked into the room wearing a crown. Sarah accepted some of it, but every morning Noah still met the lift car. Some habits weren't about efficiency. They were about showing up. Years passed. Sarah's treatments improved. Noah's grades rose. Their research grew into something the wider scientific community actually cared about. Awards came. Then scholarships. Then invitations that made Noah wonder if he'd stepped into someone else's story. Eventually, an offer arrived from the Royal Institute on Lyra Priman Academy that educated future leaders, scholars, and diplomats. Noah stared at the message for a long time, fear and hope wrestling in his chest. His mom held his hand across the kitchen table and said, "I didn't work myself into the ground so you could stay small." Sarah sent a quiet message that night. "I want my friend beside me, but I want you to choose what makes you free." So Noah chose. He left Earth. He stepped into the stars. And in the glittering halls of a world that had once been just a name, Noah kept the same core truth he'd learned in a smog-dimmed city. When you see someone struggling, you help, not because you'll be rewarded, not because you're watched, not because the person you're helping might secretly be royalty. You help because it's right. And sometimes, only sometimes, that simple choice echoes far beyond a stairwell, rippling outward until it touches an entire galaxy. Because a bridge doesn't always begin with a treaty. Sometimes it begins with a kid turning his back and saying, "Get on. I've got you."